I've been playing Assassin's Creed for about 12 years at this point. I can't say that Xbox Live was a correctly priced service, but I think at one point or another about 3/4 of these games were just free through Games with Gold. Assassin's Creed wasn't really a series that was even on my radar until Xbox just handed me the second one, and Black Flag, and Revelations, and Brotherhood, and Syndicate. And once Microsoft had dangled the whole bundle in front of my face, I was kinda locked in. A game where all you do is climb walls and stab people with a sword, add repeatedly going up and down the escalators to the list, and you have the ideal shopping experience at Dick's Sporting Goods. Assassin's Creed is developed by Ubisoft, a company with a somewhat questionable reputation for quality these days, as we'll get into in a bit. In the mid-2000s, they had the idea to develop a spin-off of their Prince of Persia games and eventually turned it into the first Assassin's Creed. This would be a much more successful release than their other projects, Pets, Horses 2, which sounds like they got the name from a Yahoo answer, and Hell's Kitchen the game, where Gordon Ramsay looks like he's trying to choke down his insatiable lust for violence while the waitstaff at Applebee's sings Happy Birthday. So anyways, within a few years, the Assassin's Creed franchise became a yearly staple, and that was thanks in large part to the structure of the story. If you're unfamiliar with Assassin's Creed, the premise is that through a technology called the Animus, people can experience the genetic memories of their ancestors. This technology is used by two warring factions: the Templars, who want to bring peace to the world through control, and the Assassins, who want to preserve liberty and have a creed. If you're one of the 4 people who actually understands the lore of this series, boy are you going to be disappointed, because I don't. The point here is that through this genetic memory plot device, each set of games takes place in a different time period and location, creating the kind of easy variety that Ubisoft simply had to convert into a yearly franchise. There are many ways that you can go about creating a yearly franchise. You can make the same game over and over again, you can make the same game over and over again, or you can... oh wait, it's kind of just that. But Assassin's Creed went a different direction. These games have actually made some pretty massive changes over time. The problem is, in my opinion, a lot of those changes were bad. Between Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, there's such a dramatic shift in combat style. For the games up to this point, the combat is very flashy and predetermined. When someone attacks, you counter, and pretty quickly you kill the guy with a flashy animation. It's basically Batman Arkham combat, except instead of flying around kicking 13 guys a minute, you're moving kind of like your feet and shins are hot glued together. It wasn't much, but it was actually pretty entertaining because you felt so powerful. You could walk into a fortress with your bare hands and beat the shit out of everyone in there in like 5 minutes. Starting in Syndicate, the combat gets way longer. Now it's more like a beat 'em up where you're having to chain attacks together. I only played this game once about 7 years ago, but I remember this combat being really tedious and long. For what happened next to make sense, I need to introduce you to Ubisoft. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, these guys hopped on board the rapidly accelerating open world games train. As open world games took over the gaming landscape, Ubisoft was actually putting out some pretty quality titles, but the thing about Ubisoft is they're never the company actually innovating in a genre. They're the company churning out 900 products a month trying to cash in on other people's innovations. If you scroll through a list of their games over the past decades, it becomes pretty clear that an Ubisoft brainstorm session is just 3 guys sitting in a room staring in silence at the title of their last game before someone tentatively adds a 2 and the whole room erupts in applause. It's also worth noting that unlike other open world game makers like Bethesda, Ubisoft's franchises were mostly annual. There's even less room to take risks or make actually impactful changes when you have to churn out a new product every 12 months. As a result, the changes that happen in the Assassin's Creed franchise don't feel like a natural progression of the game's mechanics. They always feel like Ubisoft just looking at other successful games and trying to grab as many pieces from them as possible. Anyways, when Assassin's Creed Unity launched, it was absolutely broken and the fans kinda hated it, so then Ubisoft said, don't worry guys, we'll rush out Assassin's Creed Syndicate in less than a year, and the fan response to that was also pretty mixed. So after that, Ubisoft decided to scrap it all and try an entirely new direction. What if we turned Assassin's Creed into the most generic mid-2010s looter RPG? Like, what if now you had to grind experience points to get your level up to the right number to play a mission? And what if the only way to do that was to play the most mind-numbing and repetitive side missions helping NPCs who are just glued into the world to give you chores to do? What if we go full Destiny and start using an inventory system with tiered rarity of loot that you have to keep replacing as you level up? This emphasis on RPG mechanics would keep growing over the course of the next few games until you get to this one: Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Valhalla was the point at which I realized, hey, this game isn't as fun as it used to be. And that's because Valhalla is like the culmination of all the problems that have been piling up with this series. The first thing you notice about Valhalla is that this game really wants you to think this is Dark Souls. Now you need rations to regen your health. Enemies have these giant health bars that take 5 minutes to whittle through, but unlike Dark Souls, this game is extremely easy. And this sort of makes a lot of the systems in this game useless, like these runes. I have never once needed my armor or weapons to have special runes because the game is so mind-numbingly easy. With difficulty, you have 2 options. Either actually make the game difficult in a fun, challenging way, or just embrace the power fantasy of being this unstoppable killing machine and make a fun, flashy game. But what you shouldn't do is try to have it both ways. When you do that, you end up with tediously long, but not entertainingly difficult combat. Like throughout this game, there are these big fortress battles where you're fighting through this huge crowd of people, and these absolutely suck ass to grind through. In Black Flag, these big group fights are extremely entertaining because it's like your character is looking for excuses to insta-kill people. Oh, this guy wandered near the edge of the boat? Bye! This dude is pissing you off? Shoot him in the face with one of your 4 pistols. Oh, there's a crowd of guys over there? Berserk Dart the biggest one and he'll kill the rest of them for you. I feel like by the point of Black Flag, they had fully leaned into what made their game so fun. You can board the deck of a ship completely alone, and within a minute, you're standing in a pile of corpses. In Valhalla, clearing this group of enemies is going to take like 5 entire minutes where I swing a fucking warhammer at this guy's head and he goes, ow, and takes 3% of his health bar in damage. These huge group fights are no longer this arena for flashy spectacle fighting. They just make me sigh because it's going to take me so long to clear everybody out. Just as a baseline rule, you never want your game to feel tedious to play. So how do you create excitement and difficulty at the same time? Allow me to introduce you to one of my favorite games of all time. I'll preface by saying that Sifu is not the hardest game I've ever played. Like, if you don't care about score or low age finishes, you can play pretty careless and you'll be fine. But do me a favor, crank the difficulty up to master and try to finish a level without dying. Oh, Fajar chopped your fucking head off? Yeah, he does that. You think that's bad? Wait till Yang hits you with the 5-star chicken finger dirty rat combo and detonates a nuclear weapon in your sternum. I love this game because it does what Assassin's Creed used to. It knows exactly why it's fun and it leans all the way into it. It's not trying to be anything else. It's not throwing in random bullshit to waste your time. This is a game with 5 levels. 5 amazing, insanely detailed and replayable levels. I want to focus on how Sifu handles these big crowd fights. People make fun of the NPCs in games like Assassin's Creed because they like wait in line to fight you. Oh, my friend is being stabbed in the neck. Yes, very interesting. Let me consider the implications. Oh, and I'm dead now too. The reason they have to wait like this is because this game would be pretty unplayable if they just realistically dogpiled you into oblivion. But because they're all waiting around, the rhythm of the combat becomes wait for the incoming attack, parry, attack, and counter, and then wait for the next attack or throw in a hit of your own. Even in Valhalla, that rhythm stays mostly the same, except now instead of doing this dance 3 times, you do it 50 times. There's so much waiting and everyone moves and attacks so slowly. So how does Sifu handle it? Well, there are a few things. First, the enemies actually do attack you at the same time. They don't pile on top of you and beat your kidneys into a paste like they probably should, but you're consistently dealing with 2 or 3 attackers at the same time in a big group fight. The rhythm of the fight is totally different. Yeah, you could just sit and wait for them to attack and then parry and counter just like you would in Assassin's Creed, but that's where the score meter comes in. If you just play really passive and only wait for your enemies to come to you, you might walk out of the club with like 4,000 points. You want to leave with 24,000? How about 30,000? You're gonna have to get a little fancy. You're gonna have to start dodging attacks, because if you don't, your structure meter will break and you'll get kicked in the gallbladder. And that means learning enemy attack patterns, learning where in their flurry of blows you can slip in one good hit. It means monitoring and fighting 2 enemies at the same time, alternating between your targets to keep them off balance. And it also means managing the fight environment. In a big group fight in Assassin's Creed, you're usually operating in a pretty static environment. Your enemies will circle you at a respectful distance before charging in to fight you. In Sifu, you have to worry about people getting too close because it becomes much harder to parry and dodge accurately when 4 big guys are all standing on top of you swinging at the same time. So what do? You manage your space like you do any of your other resources. You start using pushing and tripping attacks to put enemies out of commission for a second while you deal with other threats. You introduce throws into your combos so that you can put enemies somewhere other than up your ass. And most importantly, you're constantly monitoring your environment for things that you can use in the fight. There are little bottles you can fling at your enemies to stun them. You can trip them with these footstools. Sometimes you can vault over furniture to reposition yourself. Oh, there's a flight of stairs there? Yeah, that's where you're going. Adding difficulty to your combat doesn't mean increasing enemy health bars by 1,000%. It means giving you more things to manage and keep track of in combat and rewarding you for juggling all of them successfully. But these games aren't just combat. Like, one of the selling points of this franchise is the stealth mechanics. But just like with the combat, the franchise sort of takes a middle ground with stealth. Some missions require you to do things without being detected, and because of the dog shit AI and the sometimes broken movement system, these tend to be the missions that make me want to go drive my car into a river. Like the number of times in Black Flag that you're in one of these don't be detected missions while you have to follow a guy around the entire perimeter of the map, and then you try to climb onto a roof, but your character's like, nah, I'm just gonna sort of jump around like a complete asshole, and then you get spotted, and it's like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to be detected. I know. But this dude is over here galloping into a wall in front of the entire British army, and there's nothing I can do about it. A complete game over for breaking stealth when the movement of your character character is so clunky and haphazard is a perfect way to make me close the game and never open it again. But then in missions where stealth is optional, there never feels like a penalty for not being stealthy. I'm literally unkillable, which again, I'm cool with because it's fun, but like as a stealth game, I guess I expected for there to be consequences if I'm detected. It's about threading a very tight needle. You don't want to completely end the game experience because a stray NPC saw your left pinky toenail, but you also don't want the player to be able to completely ignore the stealth mechanics. You know what game does this extremely well? Boom. In Metal Gear Solid 5, I feel like I tried to start every mission in stealth mode. I'm tranquilizing dudes, I'm smacking people around with my rocket hand, but then, oh fuck. Oh no. Great. Now they all know I'm here and it's time to fight for my life against an entire base full of angry gun-toting dudes. And the difference is this game can actually be difficult. If an entire base knows where you are, you could just be completely fucked, and that makes the stealth this tense, thrilling experience. I love that it gives you this slow-mo warning when the first person is about to spot you. It's like the game telling you, hello, you have 3 seconds to end this man's life, or the 90 guys up the road are gonna mortar strike you into a flat Stanley. All of which is to say that in a lot of ways, the problems with the stealth in Assassin's Creed are actually tied into the general combat problems. Make the combat fun difficult instead of tedious difficult, and it'll establish incentives to stay hidden without totally ending the experience if you get detected. Before I move on from talking about difficulty, I gotta shit on Valhalla one more time. Valhalla manages to somehow create artificial difficulty in 2 ways. First, there's the way we already talked about where the combat is super easy but just tediously long. But second, the leveling system creates scenarios where you simply cannot win against an opponent, not because you're not skilled enough or because you don't have the right abilities to exploit their weaknesses, but because your number isn't high enough. Areas of the map in this game are sectioned off by level, and if you wander into an area under-leveled enough, you just don't do damage to enemies. Oh wait, no, I do damage. There's 3 damage right there. So guess I'm gonna have to take some days off from work. Nothing takes me out of the game like the game saying, oh, you crossed the magic line and now all your enemies are completely unkillable. Sorry. And while I'm on the topic of the leveling system, dude, look at this skill tree. Yeah, each of those dots is a skill point. Why? What is even the point of a tree this large when all the dots are shit like do 2.5 more damage? That is not gonna motivate me to level up. Oh boy, I can't wait to get to level 37. I can do 3.5% more assassination damage. I can have 4 more health. And yeah, some of the larger nodes in this tree are actually impactful abilities, but like, instead of having 15 quintillion levels with 20 impactful levels, why not just have 20 levels? You know what game did a pretty good job with this? Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's like they forgot something that they already figured out. Some of these abilities are pretty garbage, but most of them actually feel pretty powerful. I like the idea that your character should feel more powerful as the game goes on, but you really dilute the emotional impact of that progression when you have a bunch of really tiny steps instead of each level feeling like a true milestone. But probably one of my biggest gripes with Valhalla is the way its world is structured. You get into this game and you go, oh wow, look how big the map is, and then you realize that there are these clusters of interesting stuff and miles of empty nothingness. That means you have to travel for a really long time to get anywhere you want to go. But don't worry, says Assassin's Creed. Introducing Horse. Y'all remember Red Dead 2? Yeah, that game also had Horse. So this should be a slam dunk, right? Yeah, except there's still nothing going on in the spaces between the interesting clusters. So while the horse lets me get there faster, a large part of this game is still navigating through a blank environment. What's even funnier is, you can hold a button in this game to make your horse autopilot itself to your destination. So the way the gameplay works in this game is, I fast travel as close as I can to my destination, then I hold Z and watch a movie of my horse walking to the destination. It's like the developers just unplug your computer and plop you down in front of a DVD player playing Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, a movie where Matt Damon is trying desperately not to fall asleep.
He was called Little Creek, and he seemed different from the rest.
Open world games have been doing this more and more. As game worlds get more expansive, some developers seem to be ignoring the fact that a game world is only as entertaining as the amount of stuff you put in it. So if your map is going to be gigantic, there has to be that much more fun stuff to do between point A and point B. You know what game does this really well? Black Flag. A lot of this game is navigating the map just like in Valhalla, but in this game, you get a boat. A boat that you can fight other boats with and then upgrade with resources you take from those boat fights. So where the gameplay in Valhalla is fast travel to the nearest spot and watch a horse take me where I want to go for 5 minutes, the gameplay in Black Flag is like, start sailing, come across a boat. Oh shit, that boat has 150 metal? I need that for my boat. Fight the boat, board the boat, take the boat's shit. Back to what I was doing. Hey, that boat has 150 sugar. I can sell that for money, which I need to upgrade my boat. In any open world game, intermittent gameplay like this is crucial. To me, Skyrim was so much more fun when I didn't overuse fast traveling because walking a little while to the next objective had such a high chance to reveal something really fun. Maybe bandits would attack me. Maybe wild animals would chase me down. Maybe I'd stumble across a cave with some hidden loot or like a fun side quest. Maybe I'd find a Nordic tomb and get another word for one of my shouts. Open world games require the world to be exciting to interact with. with. Like the legendary ships in Black Flag. Sure, they're marked on your map and you can purposely engage them when you want to, but sometimes I'd be sailing around and I'd run into them accidentally. This created a really high stakes moment where I had to evaluate whether or not I actually could take down this threat or if it was time to run for my life. Ambiguity like that is good. It makes the world feel more dangerous. I never once encountered anything like this in Valhalla because there is no such ambiguity. If I'm a certain level, I can defeat literally anything in my way. Mystery, spontaneity, and ambiguity make crossing the map interesting, and that's how you take advantage of an open world. You just keep giving the player interesting stuff to come across while traveling. There's a reason I liked this game so much more than this one. You get a boat in this one. And it's not just because I like boats. They're fine. I'm actually pretty indifferent to boats. It's because I feel like I'm actually playing a video game instead of watching a documentary about the slowest horse who ever lived. But not every game can be a boat game. Like Assassin's Creed Nebraska, you're gonna have a hard time moving that boat around. But there's another way that you can make your open world more fun. Make it smaller. I know, counterintuitive to game companies who want to be able to advertise their game world as being big enough to fit 6 San Andreases inside of it. That's great, guys. Did you also happen to make 6 San Andreases worth of gameplay? How about, and this is going to sound crazy, instead of making your world larger, make it denser. What if you have a small map and you just pack it absolutely chock full of fun stuff to do? That way it doesn't take long to get anywhere and there's always something interesting to sidetrack you. You know what game does this extremely well? Spider-Man. In the entire time I played this game, I never used the fast travel system because traversing the map was so fun, I never wanted to. You can cross the entire map in this game in like 3 minutes. And while you're zooming across the map, 9 times out of 10, some random event will start, and despite the fact that you've done that event like 25 times, you'll be like, yeah, I got time. And that's the role of side content. Fun stuff to distract you from the main quest, whether that's in the form of side missions or collectibles or whatever. Ubisoft, I need you to understand that in your side missions, the gameplay should revolve around fighting or assassinating. This might surprise you, but when I boot up the game Assassin's Creed, I want to kill people. I don't really want to go through 6 dialogue menus and hear a guy's life story and then traipse around a different guy's house to find an item and then walk it back over to the first guy. When all your side missions are like that, I just ignore them. And as far as collectibles go, you gotta know that my motivation to pursue something is directly tied to its impact on the gameplay. So like in Black Flag, for example, I went out of my way to find every Mayan stela because if you get all of them, you get a bulletproof suit of armor. I can't say that the difficulty of this game really made me need that, but if you don't think it's cool to watch enemy bullets just bounce off of you, I don't know what to tell you. I also hunted down every ship upgrade blueprint and all the animals I needed to craft my pistol holsters because those things actually had an impact on the gameplay. By contrast, I didn't really give 2 shits about collecting all the Animus fragments. Oh, you get an Ubisoft challenge for getting all of them? Can I purchase goods and services with that? No? Then I don't really care. In all honesty, the Animus fragments were fine because you don't have to collect them. If you're a completionist, I can see how it would be fun to get them all. I just didn't really care. But I think the most important part of making your open world fun is that it should feel like the world reacts to you. Both Black Flag and Odyssey had cool ways of making this happen. In Black Flag, boarding and sinking enemy ships will make you wanted. If you're wanted, hunter ships will track you down and try to kill you. The higher your wanted level, the tougher these hunters become. For a while at the beginning of the game, these hunters are kind of a pain in the ass. Like you'll be trying to sneak your ship through somewhere or do something without drawing any attention, and then here come these hunters and now you have to fight them. It's a really fun way of making it feel like your actions have consequences. Of course, later in the game, these hunters start carrying valuable resources, so you almost want to drive up your wanted level to use the hunter ships as a gold mine. Really fun mechanic. And Odyssey does something similar with the mercenary system. In Odyssey, there are 50 mercenaries roaming around the map, and there's a mercenary ranking system where if you kill a mercenary ranked higher than you, you move up a spot. This is a great system because it taps into your psychology to enhance the gameplay. I saw this ranking list and I was like, oh, there's a leaderboard? Yeah, okay, I gotta find all these guys and kill them because I gotta be number 1. But what makes it even better is the way that it interacts with the stealth mechanics. If you're seeing an enemy territory, your wanted level goes up, and the higher your wanted level, the more aggressively you'll be hunted by mercenaries. And that's awesome because it goes to what we talked about earlier. You establish a penalty for breaking stealth. Not an instant game over like the stupid ass trailing missions, but a difficulty increase that affects how you have to play the game from now on. This was such a fun part of Odyssey, and it was really bizarre to see them get rid of it in Valhalla. The one part of these games I haven't really even touched on yet is the story, and that's mostly because I do not understand the story of these games. Every Assassin's Creed game has a historical storyline where the gameplay happens, and a modern day storyline where you're going to want to turn off your computer immediately. The modern day story of the first set of games through Assassin's Creed 3 is about this guy named Desmond who's trying to stop the Templars from finding the Pieces of Eden, which are powerful relics that can mind control people that were left behind by the Precursors, a race of beings that created humans until the humans rebelled against them. And now they have to stop a solar flare from destroying the world by sacrificing Desmond's life, but by doing that, they free Juno, who is an evil precursor who wants to reincarnate her husband Jupiter in the form of special genetically modified humans called sages. You're writing all this down? The historical stories always follow the standard template of young miscreant experiences personal tragedy and then gets recruited by the assassins to participate in historical event. And as the series has gone on, the stories have somehow gotten worse. As we've talked about, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla all lean pretty hard into RPG mechanics, and when it comes to the story, Ubisoft decided that starting in Odyssey there would be dialogue options. Now you can choose how you want your character to respond in conversations. This actually introduces several problems. Shockingly few of these choices actually impact the story. In Valhalla there are about 5 choices that affect the ending, and in Odyssey there are like 9. And when I say the choices affect the ending, it's really like, does this character like you at the end, or how many people can you see in the last cutscene of the game? So despite having the illusion of choice, in the overwhelming majority of interactions, your input does not matter. And that actually has a huge effect on the kind of stories and characters you can build, because now your plot and dialogue have to basically be so generic that they function with any given input. The developers gave the player the ability to make choices, but that really limits the character's ability to make meaningful decisions, and meaningful decisions are key to telling a story with any kind of emotional impact. So what you end up with is these really bland choose-your-own-adventure books instead of a fully developed narrative. You know what game does this really well? Black Flag. Black Flag is the only good Assassin's Creed story. Bit of a hot take, I know. 2 is actually alright as well, but none of them rise to the level of actually compelling like Black Flag does. And the reason Black Flag is so good is purely because the player has no control over who the character is. Edward Kenway starts this game as a complete asshole and a terrible person. He's chasing wealth and prestige out of his own narcissistic drive to glorify himself, and we see him straight up leave his pregnant wife to go be a pirate. He could be a farm laborer in England and scrape by with her and maybe be happy just being with her, but instead he decides to leave her and go find his fortune on the open seas. And when the game opens, he isn't some virtuous person who takes up the assassin mantle for honor and justice. No, he kills this dude and steals his clothes so he can impersonate him at a business meeting to make some quick cash. And doing that has all these ripple effects for other characters. He helps the Templars by doing this, and he doesn't even care as long as he gets paid. He finds basically a super weapon, and his plan is to sell it to the highest bidder. And even Adewale is like, maybe we should just tell the assassins about this so they can, like, protect it. And Edward's like, what? Nah, check this out. And then he gets betrayed and gets imprisoned with his friends who either get executed, die in childbirth, or literally go insane. And only near the end of the story does Edward see that the way he's been acting has destroyed so many people's lives, and he joins the assassins out of an actual desire to make amends for his actions. Dude, there's a scene at the end of this game. Edward is waiting for his daughter to arrive from England, and Anne, who's been with him throughout this whole thing, reassures him that he's a good person and he's ready to be a good father. And she sings this song, and he looks over at this empty table and sees all of his friends who should be there with him. It's sad, it's touching, it's hopeful, it's awesome. What a fucking great ending for this game. And it feels so impactful because that ending is earned. Edward isn't just this golden boy the whole time. He's a shitty person for most of it, if not all of it. At the end, he's not even sure if he's changed yet, but he's willing to try. And that's how you build a fucking character. If you gave the player a choice for every major decision in Black Flag's story, yeah, they'd probably choose all the correct options and you get this bland, forgettable mush of a story. But by taking away the choice from the player and putting them in the shoes of a person they probably disagree with 90% of the time, you actually build an opportunity for redemption. By contrast, the protagonists of Odyssey and Valhalla are blank pieces of paper. They have no personality, no character traits, no internal motivation. And that's because their words and decisions have to be malleable enough to fit whatever the player wants them to be. So they end up as these generic, snarky rebel protagonists with no actual intrigue or complexity. So if you want to tell a good story, take choice out of the player's hands and just tell a fucking story. What's interesting about Assassin's Creed Valhalla is that the fan response was actually pretty positive at first, but as time went on, I started to see more and more Reddit posts. Does Assassin's Creed Valhalla actually suck ass? So then Ubisoft says, oh, this game sucks ass. Well, prepare yourself, because this time we're going to feudal Japan. This was big words from Ubisoft. I say the word assassin. Boom, you just pictured a ninja. That's how ripe this series was for a feudal Japan game. But that's a lot of expectations. People have been waiting years for this, and they're already starting to turn on your last game. Like, should there really have been 80 quests where you grab a guy's axe from his basement and walk it 20 feet to the left? So now you gotta knock this shit out of the park. So then you almost release it in November of 2024, but then Star Wars Outlaws comes out and you're like, oh shit, wait, no, I was kidding, we need more time. New plan, release it in February 2025, except then in January you were like, maybe just like a couple more months. And finally in March 2025, they released it. Assassin's Creed Shadows. We'll start with the story since I have the least to say about it. It's pretty generic, or at least Naoe's story is. Ubisoft, I know you didn't ask for any advice here, but maybe stop putting the personal tragedy so close to the beginning of your story. In Assassin's Creed 2, we got a whole opening subplot about Ezio's family. You introduce the character, show how important his familial ties are, and then you kill his dad. So it feels like a real blow because we got to know these characters first. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, we meet Nagato for about 4 seconds before every villain in Japan gets together to shoot him one time and then leave. And that is Naoe's entire character motivation. So by the time we get to the 20-hour mark and we're doing a quest where you gotta grab some guy's shoes off the wall and bring it to him, it's like, wait, what are we doing again? We literally see more of Naoe's dad in the little flashback mini missions than we do in the main story. If that guy's gonna be the engine of Naoe's character arc, that's a bad sign. Once again, there are dialogue options that really don't matter at all, and this time Ubisoft is at least pretty upfront with that. You can choose a canon mode where all the canon decisions happen for you, and it's like, you're so close, Ubisoft. You're right there. You almost relearned how to just tell a story. Okay guys, welcome to day one of Ubisoft writing class. We're going to start with the very basics. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a bunch of meaningless choices and then tell your audience which ones are the real ones. Couldn't you just write down the narrative and the dialogue and that's it, because that's what a story is? Now the second thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the voice acting is as hilarious as possible. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
For dinner, I want pickled radish and dried fish.
My internet senses are detecting several people typing in the comments right now about how you're supposed to play with the Japanese dialogue on, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure it's better, but if there's gonna be an English dub, would it be possible for the actor to not sound like she's just figuring out what human emotions are?
What will it be today, Auntie Matsu? Weeding the turnips? Scrubbing your iron pots?
And also, what was the excuse for all the other games?
Thanks for the warning.
Not to beat a dead horse here, but I kind of feel like this is at least partially a consequence of the dialogue options. If you just made one storyline connected by cutscenes, maybe you could focus all your efforts on some tight, well-acted scenes instead of sleepwalking through 1,000 cookie-cutter conversations. Yasuke's actor is not, like, astonishingly good, but it's a noticeable improvement over Naoe.
Ise Sadoki is not here.
Damn.
I also felt like his story was the most interesting part of this game's plot. There was so much internet noise after they revealed that Yasuke would be the protagonist. The main critique leveled at Ubisoft seemed to be that setting your game in Japan and then deciding not to make the protagonist a Japanese man was entirely intended to score virtue signal points, and I have mixed feelings about that argument, because on the one hand, Yasuke was a real person, and he would have a totally unique perspective on the world and the events of that time period and place. In a series dedicated to exploring the weird corners of history, this would actually be a very interesting protagonist. The problem is, to write a character like this, you need confidence, and up till now, Ubisoft has had no confidence whenever its protagonist has any minority characteristics. How do I know? Because in both Odyssey and Valhalla, Ubisoft has given the player the option to choose their character's sex, and then has quietly said off-screen, but the woman is the canon protagonist. I'm fine with Eivor and Cassandra being the canon protagonist, but Ubisoft seemed to want to tell a different story when the time came to sell and market these games. It's not that they said the women are the canon protagonists, it's not even the first time in the series that there's been a female protagonist. It's the way that they do it so underhandedly. Like, why give your players the option to choose, but then put one as the official character at all? And when you view something as basic and unimportant as the sex of your main character as this thing you have to tiptoe around, you're not going to be able to tell a story without coming off very guilty. So I think them trying to use Yasuke for virtue points is actually a pretty reasonable suspicion to have given the company that we're talking about here. With that said, they actually did a pretty good job with Yasuke's story. Sure, all of his combat music has a trap beat in the background, but that's just hilarious. His backstory missions are at least a little bit interesting. There's this set of missions pretty early on where Yasuke has been sent to train at samurai school, and he's being Disney Channel bullied by the other samurai, but then he meets the wise sensei who sees the potential in him. It's cliche as hell, but they actually managed to convey this person who feels totally out of place and forces his way into a world that doesn't want him through sheer determination and willpower. Like, if the entire game was this story, honestly, that would have been so much better. Truthfully, I think the real issue with these stories is that they're all so fixated on the good assassins versus the evil Templars. It's not just the main characters, it's the way that these games auto-sort even the side characters into they work for the Templars or they work for the assassins. So none of the villains has their own ultimate motive, they're all just like middle managers in the Templar corporate hierarchy. And that's not to say that you can't have that struggle between the two factions as more of a background texture. Black Flag does that pretty well. The assassins and the Templars are vying for something in the background of the story, and Edward's personal motives draw him into their struggle. At first, he aligns himself with the Templars because it's profitable, but then his character decisions drive him to join the assassins for redemptionary reasons. But all the recent games have been like, the protagonist lives in a region where every bad person actually gets together in a big circle with all the other bad people once a week to hatch evil little schemes in the name of El Templars, or whatever regional franchise is headquartered in their town. The story is the least important part of this game. TLDR, Ubisoft can make good stories again if they choose to, but their commitment to structuring games like this is holding them back. Let's talk about the stuff that actually matters. The biggest improvements Shadows makes is to the stealth gameplay. Naoe moves so fluidly and has so much mobility with this sick-ass grappling hook, it makes the stealth an entirely new thing. In previous games, it's like, I could spend all this time shuffling around, killing people one at a time, but I move so slowly and so clunkily, it's just not fun. With Naoe, you're shimmying up and down your rope, throwing your kunai and shurikens, disrupting light sources so you blend into your environment. The quickness and verticality of the stealth is just on a whole new level, and whereas in earlier games, stealth never felt necessary because you can just obliterate anyone in your way, Naoe actually sucks absolute ass in open combat with an entire fortress. So when I break stealth with her, instead of sighing and just saying oops and then killing the entire fortress with my bare hands like I would have done in Valhalla, I actually have to make an effort to disengage. Sometimes you enter combat against two people, which is pretty manageable, trying to take them out quick and retreat, but you get spotted by a few more enemies, now you have to maneuver your way out of the situation. It adds a lot of much needed tension to the stealth gameplay. And then when you want to walk into a castle and just go absolute sicko mode on everyone inside, you swap to Yasuke. If only I could combine these two characters. That's how you get a princess face, a killer body, samurai mind. In addition to the stealth, the combat is also pretty sick. Okay, so it turns out the secret to getting me to like your combat is put a really badass kick move in there. Odyssey was not going to miss the opportunity to put a literal Sparta kick in the game, and it was so over the top hilariously awesome once you fully upgraded it that for like 90% of fights, I would just be using that thing on cooldown. Then Valhalla came in to ruin everything as per usual, and was like, yeah, you can kick people, but first you gotta stab them, and then he gives them a relatively dainty push with his foot, and they only fly back like 10 feet instead of 35. Shadows? Nah, they fully fucking invested in the hilarity of this move. Now when you kick a guy, the entire screen flashes like you just hit him with a bolt of lightning, and he goes shooting back 50 feet, crashing through 4 layers of shoji paper doors, and obliterating a pile of crates as he lands. It's such a dumb little thing for me to get this hype about, but this is how you make the player feel like a badass. This is the power fantasy of Assassin's Creed. Yasuke does kind of trivialize a lot of the difficult parts of this game, but that's okay, Ubisoft. You gave me the option to go stealthy and play around the difficulty when I want to, and then say fuck it and bulldoze an entire castle for fun. I mostly played as Yasuke because there's something so addictive about getting a new set of targets and just blitzing through everyone in your path until your objective is complete. But speaking of objectives, now we gotta talk about the worst part of this game, the missions. The mission structure in Assassin's Creed games has been clowned on to no end. Donkey is not the only one to point out that all these games have fucking horrible trailing missions where you just follow a guy who talks exposition at you for 5 straight minutes as you walk through every nook and cranny of a city block. The good news is, we're in the future now. We've innovated. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, you can hold a button to make your character auto-walk through the trailing missions. So now you're watching a video of your guy walking while the dialogue plays. Ubisoft, have you heard of a cutscene? A competent story writer looks at a situation like characters arriving somewhere and goes, how can I make this interesting? Or if I can't, is there another way to convey this information? Ubisoft goes, grab my arm, kid, I'll tow you to where the plot's going, come on. In fairness, there are not that many trailing missions in this game, and most of the missions in this game are not retrieving items and bringing them back. Most of the missions are either talk to a guy who tells you to ride your horse for 5 minutes and talk to another guy, or talk to a guy who tells you to ride your horse for 1 minute and kill 5 guys who are harassing another guy who you then talk to and who tells you to go back and talk to the first guy. That's 96% of the missions in this game. There was an actual quest called The Price of Rice where you ride your horse 5 minutes to find this guy. Watch a cutscene of your character talking to this guy. He tells you to go out in the rice field and kill 1 guy. You kill the 1 guy, then you walk back to the first guy and watch another cutscene of your characters talking. Mission complete. This mission took about 10 minutes to complete, and 10 seconds of that mission was gameplay. Dude, you know what would be badass? Just don't even have missions. Let me just fight through these castles. That's all I want to do anyway. It's a bad sign that at multiple points in this game, I was having fun clearing out a castle, and I finished it and I went, I guess I gotta play a story mission now. Just let me kill. I really don't need a reason. It's why I booted up this game. All I need from you is to reward my murderous efforts with cool new ways to kill. This objective board is a step in the right direction. Whenever you see a new group of enemies pop up on this thing, they've always got legendary gear that you get for killing them, and that is a huge motivator because legendary gear is the one thing that provides any kind of variety in this game. So now I absolutely will go sit through some god-awful voice acting and story because I'm going to be rewarded with a piece of gear that might actually shake things up for me. Parry unblockable attacks, refill ammo when you parry, these are the kind of perks that actually change how the game is played. They feel broken in a good way. It's awesome to be able to completely ignore a mechanic or use a weapon or a tool in a way that feels overlooked by the developers. So what if all the gear was like this? See, you wanted to be a Destiny clone where you've got all this shitty blue armor and then you find some exotic and legendary pieces to spice it up, but I will never get excited about, yay, my weapons do 3% more crit damage now. What if the only weapons and armor were the legendary ones? What if every piece piece of gear gave you some game-changing perk. Sure, your game wouldn't have as many pieces of armor, and you would spend less time in the inventory menu increasing your armor health from 431 to 432, but every time you would see a new piece of gear come in, you would rush right to the menu to try it out. You would be excited every time, and only using game-changing armor would give you more of an opportunity to try really powerful game-breaking combos of gear. See, that's the thing. You want it to be Destiny, but the whole point of that gear system is to break the game. All the serious Destiny players I know are min-maxing all their shit so they can throw a grenade every 2.8 seconds or refill their ult in like 5 kills. You join an activity with these people and you're like, damn, this is kind of hard. Meanwhile, they're slam firing their rocket launcher like, I spent 15 hours getting all the mods and chasing all the impossible armor rolls to let me do this. And the reason builds like that are necessary is because the game keeps throwing more and more fucked up shit at you. You ever try a Grandmaster Nightfall? You will need to break the game in some capacity to survive this. And this is where I feel like there's the least improvement with Shadows. The game's difficulty doesn't really scale as the game goes on. There's no new skills or attacks that you have to adapt to. There's no point that makes you sit back and go, I'm gonna have to reevaluate my approach here. Either you can smite everyone in your path with no issue, or you're playing as Naue and you're trying to fight 3 people. And it's such a missed opportunity because proper difficulty scaling can get the player so much more invested in the gameplay. You know what game does this really well? Balatro. There is a point in every Balatro run where you go, yeah, I'm hot shit, I can score 1 billion points with one hand, and then the game goes, okay, idiot, score 1 trillion points then. Oh, you can do that too, huh? Don't make me get letters involved. That constant arms race between the player and the game is what I want to see here. But again, it feels like the only way Ubisoft knows how to increase difficulty is number higher. And yeah, I know the example I just used was also number higher, but that's because that entire game is numbered. Shadows repeats the great feature from Valhalla where if you go somewhere underleveled, you get insta-killed and do 2 damage to your enemies. Let me experience fear of enemies I'm not prepared for. Make it possible to kill them but beyond my playing abilities at the moment. Hide insane gear in these higher level parts and make me want to take on the challenge to get them early. Don't just stat check me into oblivion. Now your world doesn't seem more rife with danger, it just has these corridors I can't go past the boundaries of. The leveling system itself is a huge improvement over Valhalla, not like it was even possible to make something worse. Most of these new abilities are pretty sick. We do still have a column of infinitesimal stat boosts, but I just ignored those. Now there's separate skill trees for each weapon and you advance through the tiers of perks by doing the side activities which give you knowledge points. It's a good way to motivate you to participate in the side activities. Although, like all the other missions, I wish there was more variety. Horse archery gets pretty old after you do it twice. These QuickTime event strings are somewhat interesting. Then you have the lost pages at each temple, which is just hold right click until you see a white dot, then walk up to the white dot and press E 4 times. 185 times. The world itself is beautiful. There's so much wildlife, there's so much destructible foliage and environments, the changing seasons make the world feel more alive. Like from a visual perspective, this is awesome. But yet again, there are clusters of important stuff and miles of empty space in between them. No lessons were learned from Valhalla. All of what I'm saying points in one direction as far as fixing some of these problems, but Ubisoft doesn't want to do it. Make your game smaller. The castles and the assassination boards and all that awesome stealth and combat gameplay is so on point, but why am I spending 5 minutes piloting the least maneuverable horse in between all these activities? Instead of having 10 regions, each of which is 4,000 square miles, what about 4 regions all right next to each other? Instead of every town having a castle and then nothing else, what if each town had 3 castles and there were fewer towns? The reason Ubisoft does not want to do this is one number, $70. Ubisoft wants to sell these games for $70, and there's an expectation of length when you make a $70 game. But what if, instead of a very bloated 40-hour $70 game, sell a constantly engaging 20-hour $40 game? Now, I know nothing about video game economics, so maybe my ignorance is showing here, but I think there's some evidence that players are starting to respond to engagement more than they do scale. The explosion of roguelikes over the past few years seems to illustrate this point, games that emphasize replayability over volume of content. I have 40 hours in Balatro and that game costs $15. I have 134 hours in Sifu and that game costs $40. I have found that smaller, denser games are able to capture my interest for longer than these giant empty open worlds. And that has economic consequences for the developer. Whatever Slowclap does next, I'm pre-ordering as soon as I'm able to. I will be there day one for Balatro Man's next concoction. And by contrast, even though Assassin's Creed Shadows is one of the strongest entries in this series, it has convinced me to stop buying these games at full price. I don't think everyone feels the same way about this. It seems like a lot of Assassin's Creed fans see this game as a return to form, and that'll probably buy Ubisoft enough goodwill to piss it away on a few more bloated and empty open worlds. But here's the thing, Ubisoft, you just cashed in on one of your most iconic settings of all time, that you spent years and years making making people wait for. It's not a given that whatever you do next will be able to recreate the success. So what have you got in the chamber? Assassin's Creed Hex, set during the 16th century witch trials. Okay, somewhat intriguing. Assassin's Creed Jade, an Assassin's Creed game you play on your phone? Huh? And of course, Assassin's Creed Netflix, which presumably takes place inside Netflix headquarters. Not your most promising lineup, Ubisoft. Maybe you should try giving the fans what they really want. Pets Horses 3. Hey, thank you so much for making it all the way through this video. As a reward, you now get to see this tier list I made of all the Assassin's Creed games that I could not find a spot for in this video. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, I mostly talk about movies, so get pranked, idiot. But wait, this can work for both of us. You need recommendations for good stuff to watch when you're not playing Assassin's Creed. I need your sweet YouTube watch minutes. Maybe we can come to some sort of an arrangement here. I'm linking to a video I made about my favorite movies that I saw last year, so if you've been looking for good movies to occupy your time, go check that one out. If your mouse is now hovering over the X button, I'm so sorry, please stay. Here's some more gaming videos that I've made. You can watch me talk about Riven, one of my favorite games of all time. Or if you want something similarly structured to this video, you can watch me rant for half an hour about IGN's stupid rating scale. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this. I have been writing this video for 3 years, so it's very nice to get all these thoughts out of my head. I'll see you soon.